Hey there, it's Tank Girl, and this is the OnePlus One. Yes, it's my review of the OnePlus One. It might seem like it's a little late, but it took me a really long time to get a review unit. The fine folks at OnePlus were finally able to accommodate me, and they didn't skimp. They gave me the beautiful stone finished back 64 gigabyte version of this amazing phone. And I have to say, for the price, you know, it's really a toss between this phone and the Nexus 5. But I'm critical, so I'm going to tell you why this phone just misses the mark for me, unfortunately, just by a little bit. But again, if you look at price alone, you know, you really can't go wrong with this. The Nexus 5 is the only potential competition, you know, in the $300 to $400 range, and this is a better phone than the Nexus 5 in many ways. So let's get started. As you can see, it's a pretty large phone. It has a 5.5-inch display, but a lot of bezel around it, and that's one of my gripes, and I'll show you comparisons later so you can really judge for yourself. It's very well done though. It's very well subdued. This faux silver, I think it's plastic rim all the way around the edges, makes the whole thing look a little smaller and more stately, and it's definitely thin in hand and feels great, but it is still a very large phone. So 5.5 inches, 1080p, that's 1080 by 1920 pixels. Beautiful display. It's an IPS panel. Looks really fantastic. It doesn't oversaturate. The colors are really accurate. So great display. You can see software keys on the bottom here, which is a good thing. But it turns out there's also hardware keys under here that you can enable if you want. And I prefer software keys, so I've disabled them. There's capacitive buttons under here that light up, and you can turn it on and off. Again, remember, this phone is running CyanogenMod mod, so there's a shit ton of customization, which is really, really fantastic. Showing you the rest of the front here, there's a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, great for selfies, a bunch of sensors, the earpiece as usual, of course, and then flipping it over in the back, you can see this beautiful kind of sandstone-like finish. 13 megapixel autofocus camera. I'll talk about this a bit more. It's another one of my gripes. Dual LED flash, the CyanogenMod logo and all that other stuff. But this feels like rock, and it's not, but it really feels amazing. Almost kind of like fuzzy feeling. It is so much better than the Nexus 5 at this price point in terms of fit and finish. It is really quite amazing. So let me walk you through some of the other things around the edges here. See a secondary microphone here on top. Next to the headphone jack right there, standard headphone jack as you'd expect. Walking through the right hand side here is the power lock key. It actually feels pretty good in hand, sometimes a little hard to get to, but overall pretty good. At the bottom here are what looks like stereo speakers, but it's actually a mono speaker setup with just 2 speakers. Micro USB charge and data port as you'd expect. And on the left hand side here you have the volume rocker, as you can see, and of course the SIM slot. It takes a micro SIM, which is nice. You don't have to go with the nano SIM for this phone. So that's basically in a nutshell the walk around, and as you can see, this really attractively well done chrome kind of grayish plastic. I don't think it's metal, and it's a pretty thin phone, as you can see from judging from my finger, even at the thickest point. What's inside? Well, this has 3 gigs of RAM, which is great, a Snapdragon 801, which is also great, and a massive 3100 milliamp hour battery. So battery life on this phone is really great. 5.5-inch display with that large battery and a power efficient processor works really great. Again, specs are phenomenal for the price, but I do feel it's a little too big for its screen size. And the camera, let's talk about the camera. I'm a little vexed with the camera because it's really not that great. It's good on paper, but first of all, it lacks optical image stabilization. And I know at this price point it's hard, but look, the Nexus 5 has optical image stabilization. The next version of this phone should have OIS. To me, that's a major differentiator today in a phone. So I want to see OnePlus do this on the next model. Notice there's another little microphone in the back here to probably to pick up for video. So there's 3 mics, one on top, and then of course embedded down here. More mics means better sound quality when recording video. So besides the lack of OIS, what is the big issue? Well, their built-in camera app is really poor. It has a lot of settings, but it's not really that great. First of all, there's a huge lag when taking pictures using their own camera app. I've actually had better success, as you can see here, using Android's built-in camera app. And that seems to be working better for me, but at the same time, I shouldn't be resorting to Android's camera app, which, as we all know, is definitely not the best camera on the block. I'll show you their own camera app real quick. It's up here. It is, a pretty decent enough UI, but first of all, the viewfinder doesn't show the full resolution. I'm at 13 megapixels right now, which is actually not a widescreen resolution, yet the UI, as you can see, is on widescreen mode, so that's one flaw. There's a bunch of other issues. It does save RAW, but we know that's also available on Lollipop once this gets updated, and being a CyanogenMod device, it'll probably get an update pretty soon. So, again, you can't go wrong with the price, you can't go wrong with the specs. If you're willing to live with a camera that's mid-range and not flagship grade, primarily due to the software and also partially due to the lack of OIS, then this is your phone. And of course the bezel and the size of the phone, it's a personal matter. It feels great in hand, it's thin enough. It's the overall size that I think is a little too large for the screen. So let's compare the OnePlus One with some other phones. I got the Note 4 here, which we all know is a very large mini tablet-like phone. So here it is, side by side. You can see that the Note 4 is a bigger phone, slightly taller, but the width is about the same, and this is a 5.7-inch Quad HD display versus a 5.5-inch 1080p display. And frankly, it's telling me that perhaps they could have done a better job in terms of bezel on this OnePlus One. There's a lot of it. Let's flip them over so you can have a look at what they look like from behind. There you have it. Of course, 16 megapixel with OIS here on the Note 4 versus 13 megapixel no OIS. Much better camera software. This is a really, really good camera on the Note 4. That's what they look like in terms of thickness. They're going to be about the same. They're both pretty thin phones. And again, the OnePlus One is really quite thin. So that gives you an idea compared to a larger screen phone that has almost the same surface area. Now let's compare it to a phone with the same display but that has a lot less bezel, and that's the LG G3. So here's the G3, and as you can see, 5.5 inches. It's about the same width, but it's about half an inch less tall, and it's instantly a better experience to be on the LG G3. And there you have it. Again, Quad HD, but 5.5 inches versus 1080p, 5.5 inches. Both IPS panels, but seriously, I really wish that the OnePlus One was less tall and had less bezel, because this is really where it's at. Flipping them over, you have a very similar setup, obviously 13 megapixels for both, but the G3 has a really amazing camera with dual LED flash and laser autofocus, and of course OIS. And again, not having OIS on the OnePlus One, I understand at this price point, but really, it needs to happen next year. And so let's do a thickness comparison between these two phones. Here you go. So as you can see, the G3 is not, I mean, they're all pretty thin, but I have to say the OnePlus One is one of the thinner phones on the market. It feels great in hand because of it. And so finally, let me give you one last comparison, and that's what with the Nexus 5, which is really the direct competitor in terms of price. You can see them here, side by side. 5-inch versus 5.5-inch. Both of them are 1080p full HD displays. The Nexus 5 is significantly small, and despite just being only half an inch smaller in display, because it has so little bezel and because the OnePlus One has so much bezel. But hey, this is basically your choices in terms of two devices around the same price point right now. In terms of spec, they're very similar. You get a bigger display on the OnePlus One, much better materials and build quality and finish, I think. But where you lose, I think, is on the camera. A lot of people don't like the Nexus 5 camera, but the fact that it has OIS makes a big difference. And 8 megapixel OIS, to me, I'll take over 13 megapixels without every single time. So let's show you a thickness comparison. So as you can see, about the same. I mean, the Nexus 5 doesn't have the beveled edges, of course. So there you have it, the OnePlus One. Really one of the best phones of 2014. You really can't go wrong with the price for the money. It's a phenomenal device, but I just wish it had a bit less screen bezel. I wish the camera was better, particularly the software. You know, the OIS is a price issue. I believe I can understand why they would want to cut that out for now, but I hope that in the future they add it. And yeah, this is the OnePlus One. So stay tuned for more reviews. I'm Tankgirl on Twitter, TNKGRL, and tankgirl.com is my blog, tnkgrl.com. Please like the video and subscribe. I've got more videos coming your way soon. Cheers.